Hello, BookTube. I have some mail for you here on this overcast Wednesday. The sun is a little weak, a little washy, and sometimes goes away completely behind clouds. It wasn't that way this morning. It was bright and clear this morning. Frida wanted to go for a walk, and my answer is always yes. So we went on a walk, and it was incredible. It was incredible. It was something to go in my journal. Because we were walking through the woods. I posted a picture on my sexy Instagram. We were walking through the woods just as it was clouding over. And there's a little sort of quasi-civilized wooded way, a little wooded area. It has a gravel road and everything. And then it crosses an actual paved road with, a meridian down the middle and all that. And then you enter, once you cross that road, it's at a bend. So you always have to be careful at that bend. Once you cross that road, then you enter the woods. The woods proper. And from the beginning of the woods proper, you can go deep into the woods, which is what Frida usually wants to do. She usually wants to walk until we're both good and tired. And we had no sooner crossed that road on our walk today than a car drove by and stopped. He pulled to a stop. I heard him pull to a stop, and I thought, maybe he's just being really cautious around the bend. And instead, he called out to me. The driver called out to me and said, there's a coyote right over there. And he pointed to an area of the woods around one of the bends. And I said, well, what do you mean by right over there? And he said, just a minute away, we just saw a coyote. And I said, okay. I smiled and waved and said, okay, thanks for the tip. And he started to drive away and called out, I wouldn't want him to eat your little dog. And I smiled and waved. And then once he was around the corner, so that I didn't want to irritate him by ignoring him. Once he was around the corner, I immediately set off with Frida directly in the direction that he had pointed at. Frida had been whimpering just a little prior to us seeing that car, and I thought maybe it was just, maybe she's just picking up, her sense of smell is better than mine. Maybe she's just picking up some dog that was recently here. She was picking up somebody who was recently there, definitely. I just didn't put two and two together. Why would I? I've heard rumors about these. There's a mated pair of coyotes that lives in this area of the woods. I've had rumors about them for years. Even when my old girls were still here, when we would walk in that part of the woods, it's all fairly level for a while. So even when they were older and stiffer and blind, they could still do it, and they liked it very much. So we would go, and I'd heard rumors from, well, first of all, my basset hound, Lucy, had an unbelievably good sense of smell, better than any of my beagles. And she would report many times that she was smelling something that was not a dog, that was close to, but not quite a dog. She was deeply insane, and I never really believed her until I started to hear from humans who had seen or heard rumors of that a pair of coyotes had taken up residence in this area of the woods. It's very near to Boston. It's no more than a mile from where I'm sitting right now. So it seemed a little bit of a stretch, but coyotes are really good at that sort of thing, so it wasn't unbelievable. But I had never seen them. Even after a while, I started to be able to pick up traces, smells here and there, but I never saw them. I would every once in a while in late summer, I would hear them singing to each other late at night when everything had gone to bed. I would just start hearing this singing that brought back memories immediately of all the times I camped in the American Southwest. And that was the sound of the night. That was synonymous with nighttime every night. And once that car drove out of the way, I zeroed Frida in directly in the direction that the guy had pointed to, and we eventually got down to the bottom of a soft dell, a very shallow dell. Through the bottom of that dell runs a stream. It's very shallow. It's a little bit wide. It's very healthy because there's been a little rain recently. Frida loves that stream. She loves she loves the strangeness of it, to walk through it and whatnot. We went down to that stream, and there in the shallow trees, just on the opposite side of that stream, was a male coyote, just standing there looking at us. Beautiful boy, beautiful and big. Definitely wolf blood in him. Definitely wolf genes in him. Probably down from Maine or Canada, although it could be the Great Lakes, considering how far these animals travel on their own when they're not denning. And he was just looking at us, and it was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I didn't think it was going to happen that fast, and I thought if it did happen, I'd catch a glimpse as he ran away, but he was not running. And when I was camping in the American Southwest, I thought that would be the last time I would ever face smooch with a coyote, with a wild coyote. I've never in a million years dreamed that I would meet one a mile away from my home. But I did. It was awesome. Absolutely incredible. And Frida was, of course, endlessly interested. She was endlessly interested in this thing that was definitely a canine, but certainly not a dog. That's a first for her. She's never met a fox before, never will meet a wolf. As far as I can tell, she'll never meet a wolf. So this is the one and only time. And the coyote, he had some ideas about Frida. She has some meat on her bones. She would be a meal for him and his whole family for days. But unfortunately, his answer is no. She's mine. Out of all the 20 billion dogs in the world, she's the only one that's mine, which means he doesn't get to touch her. His mate doesn't get to touch her. His pups don't get to touch her. The 10th generation doesn't get to touch her. No one gets to touch her. But that was incredible. And I'm going to mark that for today, thanks to that driver. If that driver hadn't tipped me off, I probably would have gone in a different direction. But instead, I went in just the right direction at just the right time. Broad daylight. Very nice. It was very, very nice. The highlight of my week. And then we came back and there was mail. So let's go through the mail. We'll do periodicals first. It's a great pair of periodicals. The first one is the Martha's Vineyard Gazette. This is a broadsheet newspaper. It's put out on the island of Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Massachusetts. All sorts of high-definition local bird photographs, nature photographs, just delightful. And the book reviewer for the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, but I don't have a review in this issue. So I read it with delight, but then I passed on to the next periodical, which is the Bedford Times Press in Bedford, Iowa. And the Bedford Times Press is just a few pages. It's a small local Iowa newspaper that has decided to run my book column. Look at how big that is. The original column that I did, the first Ex Libris column that I did for the Bedford Times, was shorter. I showed it to it. It was a shorter column that was mainly meant just to introduce me to an Iowa audience again for the first time in 45 years. The next one was longer, almost twice as long. And it just surprised me that is the whole half of one page. This particular column is about NaNoWriMo. It's about writing in November. That's just great. That's just fantastic. I had no idea that my full-length column would be half a page. I'm happy about that. And I write that Ex Libris column for the Bedford Times Press and now the Lenox Times, also in a small-town Iowa newspaper, once a week. I write my columns on the weekend. I can't believe I'm saying that again. For the first time since Watergate, I am able to say I write a column every weekend. That's when my editor needs it, if it's going to get in the paper by the end of the week. I write my columns on the weekend. I write a column every week for the Bedford Times Press. Now, the Bedford Times Press has an e-version, and both the print version and the e-version are paywalled. You have to subscribe, and it's not expensive. It's not all that expensive to get a weekly copy of the Bedford Times Press on your front door. And every one of those copies will have a column by yours truly. And those columns appear nowhere else. Except the other paper in Iowa, which is also paywalled. And some of these columns will also run on the website of the Wethersfield Proctor Library in small-town Vermont, Mark Richardson's library. But all of them, some of them will be Iowa-specific, and those will only run in these Iowa papers. 2 papers now. I have not yet received a print copy of the Lenox Times, and I have hopes that in not too much time it will be more than 2 Iowa papers. If you are listening to me and you're in a small town in Iowa and you have a local newspaper, feel free to get their editor in touch with the editor of the Bedford Times Press. Her email is right there on the website. Feel free. I'm sure she will work out a deal with that editor to run my column in your local paper. It's a lot of fun. So much fun. I'm thrilled. Just thrilled. I don't care how small the Bedford Times Press is. I don't care how small the readership is. I can do something about how small the readership is. Trust me. I'm starting to do that with Big Canoe News in northern Georgia. I can certainly do it here as well. The more columns I have, the better. The more newspaper venues I have, the better. But I don't care about the size of it. I care about the absolute thrill. I don't know that I can explain it. I don't think there are any people listening to me who've ever written a regular column for a newspaper audience. I don't think there are. I can't really fully explain how wonderful it feels to be writing a book column for a print Iowa newspaper again after all this time. To be able to say, well, in addition to everything else, I write my column on the weekends. Just awesome. So anyway, those are the two periodicals. I have personal connections to both of them. That won't always be true. And then we have 3 packages, and one of them I opened already. Sorry. It's a December book from Oxford University Press. It's The Rise of English by Rosemary Salamoni. And this is Global Politics and the Power of Language. So let's see what we have here. I don't think this even has... Yeah, this doesn't even have a cover. They don't even have a mock-up cover yet. But that's okay. We'll just read a little bit of it. With 1.5 billion of Earth's population claiming English proficiency, today there are far more non-native speakers of English in the world than native speakers. In this book, the author charts English's meteoric rise as the 21st century's lingua franca, a pushback from the countries interested in curbing its spread, the consequences for other languages and identities around the globe, and the pitfalls of English's dominance for native English speakers. While English lags behind Mandarin Chinese and Spanish in native speakers, and only marginally surpasses Hindi, that kind of surprises me. I would think that Hindi would be, well, not Chinese, of course, not Mandarin Chinese, but I would think Hindi would be number 2. It punches well above its weight in other ways. English has come to represent modernity, cosmopolitanism, technological progress. I would argue that the main reason is money. The main reason why graduates of universities in non-English speaking countries are told you really have to learn English and you have to learn to be good at it. You can't be stumbling through it, is because of money. It's because the English speaking world is where most of the world's money is. That's what I would argue is the case. It is increasingly the global language of business. Okay, there we go. Finance, diplomacy, academia, science, and the arts. Its popular appeal crosses generational, geographic, and class bounds. English has become a highly sought after and marketable skill and cultural asset. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Especially among young people, English dominates the books they read, the films and TV programs they watch, the music they love. English is an official language of the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, the International Criminal Court, and NATO. It is the dominant working language within the European Union, even in the wake of Brexit, though with determined opposition from France, naturally. So this is going to be interesting. Very good. It's going to be very interesting. It's also going to be an explicitly political view of the subject, which, is fine by me. I can't believe I'm having ergonomic issues. I thought I had covered all this before. You're going to hear a crash. Things are going to fall. Good Lord. Here, we'll find a way. We'll find a way. All right, and then the next 2 are in packages, so we'll open them together. No boxes this time around, but these both have heft to them. They could both be finished copies, which would be great. I'm very much in want of finished copies. Okay, great. Yes, this is a finished copy from the folks at Soho Press. This comes out in... this is out already. This came out today. Yes, this came out today. This, whatever November 16th is. Is that today? I think that's today. This is by Mick Herron, and this is Dolphin Junction, a collection of his stories. This is his first collection of stories by this author, who is certainly having a moment. The star-studded adaptation of the Slow House novels, featuring Gary Oldman, Kristen Stott Thomas, Jonathan Pryce, Olivia Cook, Jack Loudon, and others, is gearing up for 2020 release on Apple TV+, and the literary acclaim for the espionage series is only growing. In 10 years, this author has gone from the frustrating status of best-kept secret to spy fiction's most award-winning author. And for what it's worth, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I might point out here, since my colleague Christian Lorentzen is not on BookTube, that is not worth anything. But I know what you mean. I know what the writer of the pub sheet means. So this is a collection of Mick Herron short stories that have appeared in things like, Hitchcock or whatnot, so you might not have seen them. And you might want to. If you're a fan of the Slow House mysteries, then you might want to see them. Because this author has a very amiable voice. So, Dolphin Junction, we've got some fiction. And then we'll do this last one here. Also heavy, also hefty. It could also be a finished copy. That's good because I have I have my November books in two piles. The two towers. The one pile is all finished copies, and the other is all not. The other is all ARCs, like that Rise of English thing. And I'd like to swap them out. I'd like to get all finished copies. So what have we got here? Okay, all right, great. Oh, this is going to make me a little wistful. Okay, this comes out in December 7th. And this is by Christopher Fowler, and this is London Bridge is Falling Down. This is from Bryant and May. This is a Peculiar Crimes Unit mystery. This is a Bryant and May novel. And the reason it's going to make me a little wistful is because just last week, the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston had a bunch of Bryant and May novels in what I think were UK hardcovers. Just last week, there was the whole backlist of this entire series was there, and I was looking at them and I was thinking, well, okay, but surely there are ebooks of them, and you don't tend to keep your murder mysteries, and you shouldn't ever fall into the habit. Talking to myself here, I should never fall into the habit of using the Brattle Bookshop, spending money at the Brattle Bookshop to buy research materials for some prospective new book. There's a chance I won't review the new book, and I won't keep the research materials anyway, and the book shouldn't need them. So I didn't get any of those Bryant and May novels at the Brattle, and now I kind of feel a little covetous towards them. But let's see what we have here. For almost 2 decades, award-winning author Christopher Fowler has delighted scores of readers with quirky mysteries and memorable characters in his Peculiar Crimes Unit series. Arthur Bryan and John May, the brilliant detective pair at the center of each novel, have always had a knack for solving arcane crimes that baffle more traditional investigators, and now the dynamic duo returns in their 20th installment. And there were probably at least 10 Bryant and May novels. I don't know that I saw 20, but there were at least 10. Oh, I'm not going to get wistful. I'm not. It would have been a mistake to get them, knowing I knew this thing was in the air. I knew this thing was coming. It would have been a mistake to get those. So I'm not going to get wistful. I'm not. So what's this one about? When 91-year-old Amelia Hoffman dies in her top-floor flat on a busy London road, detectives Arthur Bryan and John May of the Peculiar Crimes Unit have a suspicion that her death may not be as unremarkable as it seems. Mrs. Hoffman was once a government security expert, though no one can quite remember her. When a link emerges between the old lady and a diplomat trying to flee the country, it seems that an impossible murder has been committed. Mrs. Hoffman wasn't the only one at risk. Bryan is convinced that other forgotten women with hidden talents are also in danger, and curiously, they all own models of London Bridge. London Bridge is falling down. I'm hooked. Absolutely hooked. I have read some Bryant and May novels, but I haven't read them all. And I never will, now that I passed them up. I will definitely enjoy this, though. I think I remember enough so that I won't be caught off guard. But I also seem to remember the Bryant and May novels that I've read, and some of you will probably have read more of them than I have. I seem to remember that this author, unlike so many authors of books in series, does a good job at making each book feel like its own unit. Feel like you're not coming in the middle of a long dinner party. I'd like to hope that's the case here. But anyway, that is our book. London Bridge is Falling Down. So we have genre fiction, two mystery things. I imagine that Mick Herron mostly writes mystery stories. And also history, the rise of English, global politics, and the power of language. So a little nonfiction and some finished copies of fiction for our mail for today. So good. It's still early yet. There may be more mail. If so, we'll have a mail part 2. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.